Welcome. Let me ask you something. How do we know if our economy is actually healthy? Well, economists look for vital signs, kind of like a doctor checking your pulse. But what if one of their most important tools was giving them a completely wrong reading? Today, we're diving into a paper that uncovers a surprisingly simple mistake in how we measure money, a mistake that's been sending confusing signals for decades.
Okay, so let's get into it. To check up on an economy's health, economists track all sorts of things. You've probably heard of the big ones, right? GDP, inflation, unemployment rates. These are the indicators that tell them if things are humming along nicely or if there's trouble on the horizon. And one of the most critical vital signs is something called the velocity of money. You can just think of it as the economy's pulse. It's all about how fast money is changing hands. A nice, steady, predictable pulse, that's a sign of a very healthy and stable economy.
But here's the problem. For years and years, this economic pulse was just all over the place. It was erratic, it was unstable, and honestly, it was a real mystery. Imagine you're a central banker trying to steer the economy. It's like trying to navigate through a huge storm with a compass that's just spinning wildly. Not very helpful, right? So what on earth was causing this? This economic arrhythmia, you could call it. Well, the answer lies in a really simple but profound question, one that challenges a basic assumption we all make about money. Is a dollar really always a dollar? And this right here gets to the absolute heart of the problem. Think about it. A dollar bill you have in your hand is completely different from a dollar that's locked up in a savings account, like a CD. One is for spending right now, the other is for saving for later. Economists have a term for this difference, moneyness. It's just a measure of how easily you can use an asset to buy stuff. And yet, the standard way we've been measuring the money supply for ages, using things like the M2 aggregate, it does something really weird. It just lumps everything together. It takes cash, checking accounts, savings accounts, and just adds them all up with the exact same weight, as if they're all identical. The paper asks this question directly, and it's a huge challenge to that old method. I mean, the answer is pretty obvious, isn't it? It's a big, fat no. And it turns out this simple, flawed assumption is the source of all that crazy, unreliable data. Okay, so if just adding it all up is the wrong way to do it, what's the right way? This is where the paper introduces a much, much smarter solution, and it comes from a really powerful part of economics. The answer is something called index number theory. Now, this field is designed for exactly this kind of problem: how to combine a bunch of different things into one single meaningful number. And the specific tool they use is called a division index. Now, instead of treating every dollar the same, it weighs each type of money based on its moneyness. So cash and money in your checking account get a high weight because you can spend them easily. Things like long-term savings deposits, they get a much lower weight. It just makes sense. And the really crucial thing here is that this method gives us a way more accurate picture of what's going on. It understands that you and I shift our money around, right? Sometimes we save more, sometimes we keep more cash for spending. The result is what economists call a superlative index, which, is really just a fancy way of saying it's pretty much the gold standard for doing this. Now, I know this might sound a little abstract, a little theoretical, but the difference this makes in the real world, it is absolutely stunning. When you actually compare the data from the two methods, they tell completely different stories about the economy. Just look at this. Both methods start at the same point in 1968. But then, over the next decade, check out what happens. The division index, the new, smarter method, stays pretty stable, right around where it started. But the simple sum velocity, the old method, it goes on this wild ride, trending down and down. These two numbers are painting completely opposite pictures. And get this. The paper crunched the numbers and found that the old simple sum index was more than twice as volatile as the new, more accurate division index. That means the old way of doing things was creating a ton of statistical noise, basically sending a garbled, misleading signal to everyone trying to understand the economy. So why should we care? This isn't just some academic debate about numbers. Getting this measurement right has huge, real-world consequences that affect all of us. It's simple, really. When central bankers have a clear, stable signal to look at, a reliable pulse for the economy, they can make much better decisions to keep growth steady and fight inflation. That unstable signal from the old method, it was making their job incredibly difficult, maybe even leading them to make the wrong moves. And this isn't even a new idea. The paper wraps up with this killer quote from the legendary economist Irving Fisher. written all the way back in 1922. He was warning people about this exact problem over a century ago, calling the simple method freakish and biased.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big question. If we've known for 100 years that there's a better way, and the evidence is so clear, why on earth do so many major institutions still rely on the old, flawed, simple sum approach? That's a question definitely worth thinking about.